All right, welcome back. Welcome back. Once again, all praises to the Most High, the power of Israel, the power of Abraham, power of Isaac, and the power of Israel. Again, I am your Akazaki Yahoo. As always, I'm giving all praises, honor, and great esteem unto the Most High Power, Yahweh Bashem Mashiach, Wamalak Yahweh Shai, and to the 12 tribes of Israel who are scattered to the four quarters of the earth. I say Shalom, Wa Baruchim, that is peace and blessings. And I cannot wait till the day when the Most High brings us back together. And we are once again 12 tribes, one family, one nation, under the Most High Power, under one covenant. Back in our own land with a heart of flesh and no more a heart of stone, with our enemies, our adversaries, and all those who hate us under our feet until that day come. All praises to the Most High. All right. We are back again with another video review. Once again, this video comes to us by way of Black Journals. Shout out to those brothers for doing magnificent work. And the name of this video, Blacks Beware, Sundown Towns You Must Avoid in 2025. No better way to be humble than to understand that in certain places you can't go. Let's get to it.
Imagine running out of gas in a sundown town and you don't even know you're in a sundown town. Story time. For those of y'all who don't know what a sundown town is, let me go ahead and give you a little bit of background real quick. Sundown towns are towns that are majority white. They didn't start off that way, let's be clear. But black and brown people are not safe, not wanted, and not seen in sundown towns. On the lower end of the spectrum, they're not going to serve you. They're not going to acknowledge you. And you're going to get a lot of racial slurs and discrimination, especially at night. On the extreme high, other end of the spectrum, you go out there and you don't make it back home. They exist all over the United States. They just don't like to talk about it. Oh yeah, TikTok, this is for entertainment purposes only. You'll find a lot of these towns in like the outskirts of whatever city you're living in. You may drive through these cities when you're doing road trips and you don't even know that it's a sundown town, but it is.
Yes, there are still several towns in America today that are not safe for Black people after dark. It is the sad truth. Sundown towns are what they go by, a term quite familiar to many African Americans. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the American landscape, the term sundown town evokes a haunting history that many would prefer to forget, a history of pain and suffering.
What you just said, Raul, when the sun goes down, here is the historical context for this. If you were Black in an all-white town, you could not be in that town when the sun goes down, and it was a threat to your safety.
Historian and author James Lowen, the man who literally wrote the book on sundown towns, uncovered thousands of these towns that existed in the United States throughout the 20th century. By some estimates, as many as 10,000 sundown towns had sprung up across the country by 1970. Some where the warning to African Americans not to let the sun go down on you was an unspoken rule that spread by reputation. Others where the warning was explicitly spelled out in signs posted along the highway or at the town.
These were towns across the United States where Black Americans knew they weren't welcome after dark. Numerous signs posted at the limits of such towns warn African Americans, don't let the sun go down on you in here. These towns, notorious for their unwritten rules that forbade people of color from being present after dark, are relics of a deeply segregated past. Yet, as we progress in the 21st century, the unsettling reality is that some of these towns still exist in 2025. We even hear it's worse now because there are no more signs up, so you may just drive in there on a normal day and get yourself into a death trap.
Listen, if you are a Black truck driver in America, I need you to listen up. There are places in America called sundown towns. I don't know if you know this, but it's an area where if you're caught there after sunset, after the sun goes down, you're either going to be severely injured or your life is going to be taken. The company that I used to work for called Warner Enterprises sent me there, and I believe they did this on purpose because I filed a racial discrimination complaint along with many other retaliation complaints. The first clue that I got is because my boss called me and told me to spend the night that night. He's never told me to spend the night anywhere. And then when I got to the facility and tried to get unloaded, the white guy was like, hey, it's not a good idea for you to spend the night here or be here after sunset. He told me to leave. And then when I emailed Human Resources, you know what they told me? They told me I have other pressing matters to attend to. Basically, my life is not valuable to them. So if you ever visit Vincent, Virginia, just be careful. It's in an area known as the Devil's Bathtub, and they do not like black people. Google the history.
Now, come to think of it, what drives these communities to cling to such exclusionary practices? How do they reconcile their past with the present? Join us on a journey through the heart of America as we delve into the stories of these shocking sundown towns to uncover not just the remnants of racial intolerance, but also racial intolerance that continues till date. Before we continue, don't forget to support our efforts by hitting that like button before you. Share with your family and friends to keep spreading our eye-opening Black narrative, and kindly subscribe to stay tuned into the channel for more interesting updates ahead. Now let's dive in.
Being a truck driver in Florida, let me tell you all the first experience I had of finding out what a sundown town was. It was a Thursday. I was driving a 26-foot box truck from Orlando to Gainesville. So I'm between Ocala and Gainesville, but I got to stop and get some gas and get some food or whatever. But I see absolutely nothing as I'm driving. It ain't no houses, no buildings, just road and trees. I finally find this old-ass Circle K gas station in the middle of nowhere. An old white lady that was helping me at the counter was sweet as can be, nice as hell. Hey, baby, what brings you way out here in these sticks? You just coming to get some gas? I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of familiar with these parts, but kind of not, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to Gainesville. I'm just shooting through. I'm in and out. She's like, all right, baby, God bless. You have a good one. Get my stuff, go back out to the truck, try to put the key in there and start the truck up. It will not start up. I wait a few seconds, put the key in there again, try to start it up. It will not start up. Don't know what the fuck is wrong. So I call my dispatcher, and my dispatcher tell me to look up under the hood to see if I can figure it out. I'm just like, yeah, okay, whatever. So I say to myself, man, I'm not about to go look up under this fucking hood. I don't know what I'm looking for. I don't know what I'm looking at. I signed up to be a driver. I ain't no damn mechanic. But I'm sitting there for like 20, 25 minutes, so I get bored. I'm like, all right, man, let me just go look up under the hood, see what I can see. So as soon as I get out of the truck, go around, pop open the hood, and as soon as I look down, the lady that was helping me in there comes out in a panic. What's wrong, baby? Is everything okay? Are you all right? I say, yeah, ma'am, I don't know what's going on with the truck. It won't start up, and I don't know much about trucks. I called my dispatcher. I don't know what they're going to do. They figuring it out now. She was like, all right, well, do you need a tow truck or anything? Do you need an Uber or a taxi to take you closer into town? And I was like, no, ma'am, I'm not allowed to leave the truck. There's a lot of valuables on this truck, and I'm delivering. I can't just leave the truck. I can't just leave it. She was like, all right, I understand. And she goes back in the gas station, but she keep looking at me, looking at her watch, looking at me, looking at her watch. And then she comes back out there and says, well, you don't want to sit up in some hot truck. You can't get it fixed, no AC, and there's nowhere for you to sit down in there. Like, so you're just going to stand out here and just sit in this hot truck? I say, honestly, man, right now, I don't have a choice. I'm just waiting for my dispatcher to hit me back. She said, okay, I understand. My dispatcher called me back and was like, listen, we got a tow truck coming out there in about 2 hours. Just sit tight. I'm like, damn, 2 hours is hot as hell. I'm ready to go. Then again, I was like, it's all right. I got food. I got drink here. The sun about to start going down. It's not going to be that hot, whatever. And I didn't want to go in the Circle K because of how the lady was acting. So I was just like, I'll be all right, whatever. She seen me get off the phone. She ran out to me again and she was just like, did you figure anything out? Do you know what you're going to do? I was like, yeah, my dispatcher said they got somebody coming in 2 hours for the tow. I'll be fine. She was like, 2 hours? The sun will be down by then. Are you sure they can't figure anything out before then? I was like, they said 2 hours. And she looked at her watch, went right back in the store. A few minutes go by, I get thirsty, so I ran in the store and go grab a Gatorade. As soon as I go in the store to get a Gatorade, she had her back turned and she was on the phone talking to the police, talking about, yeah, he's been here for a while. You got to come get him, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't put two and two together until I bought the Gatorade and I left. And I was like, damn, she was calling the police. She was calling somebody on my ass. Like, what the fuck? So I called my dispatcher back. I'm like, yo, I don't know what's about to go down, but this old lady that worked at this store just been giving me problems or whatever. When she found out I wasn't going to be able to move my truck, I think she just called the police on me. I don't know what's about to happen, but can y'all shake a tail feather? My dispatcher was like, why would she call the police? I was like, I don't know, and I don't want to find out. Can y'all hurry up? 5 minutes after I get off the phone, sure enough, the police pull up right behind my truck. A black police officer gets out and he asked me what's the problem, asked me what's going on. He assesses the truck and says, listen, I'm going to have to take you somewhere. I said, I can't leave my truck. Like, what are you talking about? You about to get me fired. He said, listen, I'm going to have to take you somewhere. Get in the truck. Get in the back of the truck. We driving for about 30 seconds. And I'm like, bro, where the fuck are you taking me? He was like, are you familiar with the mall area? He was like, that's a good area. I said, yeah, I'm familiar with the mall area. He said, yeah, that's where I'm taking you. I said, what the fuck you taking me to the mall for? I can't leave my truck. He said, you have to leave your truck. I said, why? Because that bitch called the police on me. I ain't even do nothing. He said, she didn't call the police on you. She called the police for you. I know her personally. He said, in 45 minutes, that sun was going to go down and you was going to go missing. And I ain't say nothing else. I already knew by then. I put two and two together by that point. When we finally got to the mall, I called my dispatcher and I told the officer, I'm like, yo, I need you to tell my dispatcher why I had to leave the truck. And he grabbed the phone and told my dispatcher everything, got on the phone, called my boss and told my boss everything just so I wouldn't get in trouble. The lady was scared for my life. Even the officer didn't even stick around. He like, yeah, I'm just going to drive you out here. Because he could have easily been like, well, I'm just going to stick here with you so nothing happened to you. He was like, nah, nigga, we got to go. We got to go. Even when the tow truck guy came and picked me up, I told him where it was at. He put it in the GPS. He was like, yeah, I'm not going over there. I said, what the hell? He said, yeah, I'm not going over there that late. I'll come back and get it in the morning.
Sundown towns started as a way to keep African Americans from moving into all white neighborhoods and taking white jobs. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, many towns across the United States passed ordinances that prohibited Black people from living within town limits. Often, authorities coupled these ordinances with violence and intimidation tactics to ensure that Black people complied with the rules. The earliest legislative restriction came in 1714 from New Hampshire called an Act to Prevent Disorders in the Night. This law was passed to blame African Americans, Native Americans, and mulatto servants and slaves for nighttime disorders. The discriminatory law used bigoted and racist language to blame the Indians, Blacks, and mulatto slaves for all the illegal activities happening after nightfall. The law made it a crime for any person of color to be out of their home after 9 p.m. Sundown towns range in size from tiny villages to cities. There are also many sundown suburbs and neighborhoods, and even entire counties. Their communities also range from rich to poor. Outside the traditional South, where sundown towns are rare, probably a majority of all incorporated places kept out African Americans. For example, in 1970, 71% of Illinois towns with over 1,000 people, for example, had been all white in census after census. Although the United States has a history of expulsion of African Americans from certain communities dating back to the 18th century, sundown towns became common during the nadir of American race relations after the Reconstruction era ended in 1877 and through the Civil Rights Movement in the mid-20th century. The period was marked by the lawful continuation of racial segregation in the United States via Jim Crow laws. The Civil Rights Act of 1968 codified enforcement of federal law abolishing restrictive housing covenants. Also, sundown towns could issue written warnings to non-whites by way of signage, city ordinances, housing covenants, and notices posted in local papers or directly on the homes of non-white families and their employers. Violent means of expelling minorities from their communities may include the realization or threat of firing gunshots and dynamite into their homes, burning down their homes, placing bombs and performing cross burnings in their yards, mobbing them, lynching them, and gruesomely killing them. Sundown towns were a major consequence of this hardening of racial attitudes and the regression in basic civil rights for Black people and other minorities. The large majority of these towns were in the Midwest, Appalachia, the Ozarks, and the West, whereas relatively few existed in the Deep South.
It is very scary and dangerous as being Black, driving, walking into a store. You just never know what's going to happen. The day you're out could be your last day because you have racists.
Now you may wonder why sundown towns arose. Let us see. After the end of the American Civil War and the passage of the Reconstruction Amendments, African Americans occupied political offices, and though still concentrated in the states of the South, were dispersing geographically across the country. However, from the 1870s onward, a national backlash to the increasingly racially integrated politics and economy of the country gained strength, and white supremacist control reasserted itself, both in the Deep South and elsewhere. In the West, for example, rising anti-Chinese sentiments led to the Chinese Exclusion Act in 1882 and the expulsion of Chinese people from many small towns, resulting in their concentration in urban Chinatowns. These actions were soon followed by the reassertion of white control in the South through the creation of the Jim Crow legal regime and its legal confirmation in Plessy versus Ferguson. It was a regime that looked a lot like slavery. Under Jim Crow, blacks could not vote. They would not be accommodated at restaurants, parks, hotels, or schools used by whites. Black travelers faced a variety of dangers and inconveniences, such as white-owned businesses refusing to serve them or repair their vehicles, being refused accommodation or food by white-owned hotels, and threats of physical violence and forcible expulsion from whites-only sundown towns. Even streetcars and railroad waiting rooms now isolated blacks in separate sections. Lynchings and other forms of violence against blacks rose to their highest point. In fact, Black Americans were the targets of racial violence and discrimination in the North, East, and West as well. Still, there was a greater opportunity for family-supporting jobs and a better life outside the South, so millions of blacks left in one of the largest migrations in history. This is known as the Great Migration, and this eventuality had transformed America. For example, African Americans reached every county of Montana. More than 400 lived in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. City neighborhoods across the country were fairly integrated too, though black inhabitants were often servants or gardeners for their white neighbors. Beginning about 1890, many towns and counties across the country that had mixed populations of black and white people found pretexts to expel their black residents. Such expulsions were accomplished often through violence, in which an accusation against one black person of committing a crime or misdeed would cause white residents to blame the whole local black community, which would then be forced out through violence and arson. Other towns became sundown towns through social and economic coercion, as in those that adopted ordinances that either excluded black people from owning property in the town or refused city services to prospective black residents. The sundown curfew was enforced by both law enforcement and vigilante action by white residents. The result of this movement was a narrowing of the places that black people could safely live and the extreme concentration of black populations in restricted urban neighborhoods called ghettos. According to historian James Lowen in the book Sundown Towns, 2005, in 39 states in which sundown towns were created, 31 states showed an increase in the number of counties with fewer than 10 black residents from 1890 to 1930. Also, by 1930, Michigan's Upper Peninsula was home to only 331 African Americans, and 180 of them were inmates of the Marquette State Prison. 11 Montana counties had no blacks at all. Across the country, city neighborhoods grew more and more segregated. Sadly, the Great Migration sparked intense racism across the country. Whites feared black immigrants, and they established sundown towns around the country. Most sundown towns expelled their black residents, or agreed not to admit any between 1890 and 1940. Sundown suburbs developed a little later, from 1900 and 1968. There were also race mass killings in which white mobs attacked black neighborhoods, burning, looting, and killing. Across America, at least 50 towns, and probably many more than that, drove out their African American populations violently. At least 16 did so in Illinois alone. In the West, another 50 or more towns drove out their Chinese American populations. Many other sundown towns and suburbs used violence to keep out blacks or sometimes other minorities. So instead of the promised land, black migrants found that Jim Crow had made the journey north too. They were unable to settle in the kinds of small communities they had inhabited in the South. Instead, they were allowed to settle in only the oldest, most rundown neighborhoods in industrial cities. Whites fled to suburbs or parts of the cities with better housing. In the 1930s to 40s, the federal government set up the FHA, Federal Housing Administration program. This made home ownership affordable for millions of average Americans. However, property values and eligibility for loans were tied to race, so blacks got almost none of the loans. There were also written covenants and informal gentlemen's agreements between realtors and sellers to exclude blacks from white neighborhoods. Owning a home in a valued neighborhood is how most average Americans save money and pass it on to their children. This critically important method of building family security and wealth was denied to most African Americans. It is sad that sundown communities still exist today. Most white people in America live in all-white communities, attend all-white churches, and do not know a single black person well. There may not be a sign hanging up when you enter the town that says, "This is a sundown town. Blacks beware." But the rules still apply. Candace Taylor, an author who spent an entire summer exploring the Negro Traveler's Green Book, believes these towns are still around and are just tucked away from the mainstream consciousness.
Sundown towns are just like any other towns in America,
She told WBUR radio station in an interview.
I have been to a couple that still seem to hold on to their racist heritage, and they have a large number of white supremacist groups.
She also explained how sundown towns weren't just a problem in the South.
There were thousands of these sundown communities, and most of them were predominant in the Midwest, in the West, and in the North,
she said.
So most people assume it was the South that was the problem, but that really wasn't the case.
Surprisingly, a sundown town does not need to have laws or signage explicitly stating that non-whites are not allowed. In many cases, the town's unwritten rules are enough to keep minorities out. For example, a town may require all businesses to close at sundown. This makes it difficult for Black people to find employment or forces them into service positions like cooks, maids, and butlers. Additionally, a town may have several hotels that refuse to serve non-white guests. Inhumane, you may say. Now let's take a look at some sundown towns that sadly still exist in America in 2025. 1. Vidor, Texas. This is one of the most well-known modern sundown towns in Texas and in the USA because of the large number of Ku Klux Klan members. Even up until these recent times, these ill practices are still staunchly very much alive. Gideon, a Black truck driver, recounts an experience during his stopover in Vidor, Texas. And guess what year? Only in 2022, just here.
Yo, let me tell y'all as quickly as I can about my night in a sundown town. Excuse me. Yes, I said that correctly. A sundown town.
Gideon shared that many Black Texans had warned him against visiting Vidor due to its reputation. Despite arriving at 5:30 p.m. with a delivery not scheduled until 8 a.m. the next day, Gideon encountered unsettling signs of racism. This includes multiple Confederate flags and a disturbing effigy of a Black man hanging from a tree. At the delivery site, he overheard a security guard on the phone referring to a code red and expressing reluctance to ensure Gideon's safety after business hours.
2022, a sundown town. For those who don't know what a sundown town is, look it up on Google. But anyway, so I get a load going to a particular city in Texas, and I'm like, okay, well, let me head on over here and drop this off. They're going to pay me this much. That's perfect. I like that. It's a quick 200 miles, make it quick. You know, whatever the amount was, great, cool. I get there, and I look at the exit. I'm like, wait a minute. It took me to exit 861A. For those who don't know, it's a place called Vidor, Texas, Vidor, Vidor. I'm like, uh-oh, I heard stories. Like pretty much everybody I know in Texas that's Black tells me, do not go to Vidor, Texas. I'm like, okay. Yet here I was in Vidor, Texas. My load didn't deliver until this morning. This is from the perspective of yesterday. Didn't deliver until tomorrow at 8. It was like 5:30. So I get to the place. I'm not giving names of companies or anything like that. But while I'm driving to the place, I see trailer parks. I see a bunch of Confederate flags. I saw a doll of a Black man. It was just a doll wrapped in a Confederate flag hanging from a tree by its neck. That's the type of stuff I saw in Vidor, Texas, which led me to believe that the reputation was fairly earned. I get there, the security guard says, hey, we got a code red. The guy gets on the phone, is like, hey, I can't I don't want to be responsible for this guy's safety. Let me go ahead and find somebody, because we stopped taking loads at 4 o'clock. But I'll get somebody over here from the other side of the plant. Tell them to hang on. So I hang on. I'm doing what I got to do. Finally, somebody comes by about 15 minutes later. The guy said, let me hurry up and get you unloaded. He quickly gets me unloaded. And they say, dude, you might want to get up out of here as soon as possible. We're at sundown. You want to leave here now. Don't stop until you at least get to Beaumont. I was like, okay. He's like, no, seriously. I said, well, what about the police? Why aren't the police there? Police turn a blind eye. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do what you said. He said, yeah, man, I don't want to see you get in any trouble.
Gideon had been urgently advised to leave before sundown by another individual who loaded his truck hurriedly, even cautioning that the local might not offer protection. Gideon had driven to Beaumont, where he had spent the night that very day, keeping a rifle close for safety. In Vidor, Klan members would frequently march through town and burn crosses on the hills to intimidate blacks, causing many to flee. This exclusionary practice was symbolized by a sundown sign, though reportedly removed in the late 1970s or early 1980s. The town's struggle with its racist past was highlighted in 1993 when, following a district court order by Judge William Wayne to desegregate public housing in 36 counties in East Texas, including Vidor, the community faced significant backlash. This included a march by the Ku Klux Klan, opposed by a large prayer rally organized by local church leaders. Despite trying to make housing units available for minorities, the racial climate remained extremely hostile. When 4 black families moved into a desegregated housing complex, they faced severe threats. Some of those threats even included a bomb scare, forcing them to leave for their own safety. One resident, Bill Simpson, shared some of the explicit threats to his life that he heard. I've had people who drive by and tell me they're going home to get a rope and come back and hang me. In the mid-2000s, reporter Keith Oppenheim traveled to Vidor and interviewed residents of town. A resident said that she'd welcome blacks to her neighborhood. Then she said this, I don't mind being friends with them, talking and stuff like that. But as far as mingling and eating with them, all that kind of stuff, that's where I draw the line. 2. Anna, Illinois. One of the most infamous sundown towns in America is Anna, Illinois, also known as Ain't No Niggers Allowed. Anna is the principal town of Union County and serves as a regional retail hub in southern Illinois. As of the 2020 census, the population stands at 4,303, with 95% predominantly white. The town's troubling past began to cement itself in 1909, when residents attempted to expel black families following the lynching of William Froggy James in nearby Cairo. This was in response to the alleged crimes against an Anna local, which triggered a violent reaction against the black community. This incident epitomized the town's sundown status, where signs explicitly warned black individuals against remaining in town after dark. Despite the town's official name honoring Anna Davey, the wife of its founder, its acronym became a symbol of its exclusionary practices. This legacy has been captured in both literature and film. Furthermore, despite the changes over the years, Anna's past still looms large. Its past still influences its demographic makeup and cultural perception well into the present. One resident even said this, "Niggers aren't allowed in Anna. If one is seen, they're told to not let the sun set on their black heads. If you want niggers, go to Carbondale." The signs that marred its roadsides into the 1970s have disappeared. However, according to some residents, as of 2010, the town still excludes and refuses to serve black people. 3. Benton, Illinois. Benton, Illinois serves as the county seat of Franklin County. It is a small city with a population of 6,709, according to the 2020 census. Mostly white, the city reflects a racial makeup of 93% white and 0.5% black. In April 1995, Benton was the site of a Ku Klux Klan rally held outside the Franklin County Courthouse, attracting about 400 people, but not all of whom supported the KKK's views. The rally saw KKK members delivering hate-filled speeches against various groups, including Jews, blacks, gays, liberal politicians, and reporters. The event was heavily policed, with around 40 officers in riot gear to maintain order. Fast forward 25 years to June 2020, Benton witnessed a shift in its social climate with a Black Lives Matter protest at the same courthouse, very different from the 1995 gathering. This protest, which was prompted by the murder of George Floyd, saw about 60 people advocating for racial justice and equality. Interestingly, this demonstration occurred as the courthouse was being prepped for demolition. One could say that this symbolizes a physical and metaphorical dismantling of the old order, or something to that effect. But while the town is slowly changing for the better, the lack of Black residents is still very noticeable. 4. Alba, Texas. Between the crossroads of U.S. Highway 69 and Farm to Market Road 17, Alba, Texas, might seem like just another small town on the map. With a modest population of 473, this community near Lake Fork may seem like a wonderful place, unless you're Black. The town was founded in 1843 as an all-white community. In 2000, the town made headlines for being 98.6% white. Theories on how the community got its name differ. However, a popular one claims the town's name is derived from the Latin word for white. It was named because settlers did not permit Black people to live there. 5. Comanche County, Texas. Comanche County, Texas holds a place in history as the only U.S. county to officially adopt sundown town policies. It's no shock then that Comanche County is home to a huge number of sundown towns in Texas. It started when Moses Jones, a Black man in Comanche County, killed 2 white and 2 Black children. He then set fire to his white employer's home in 1875. He was arrested and shot. The people of Comanche County initially determined that this was a unique situation. They decided it was okay for Blacks to continue to live in the area. But in 1886, a Comanche Black man was accused of killing a white woman. He was immediately lynched, and a meeting of all white citizens came together to discuss the future of their towns. They determined that 2 killings by Black men of white people were too much. They wanted to eliminate the Black population from their town. It was resolved to give every African American in the county 1 week's notice to leave the county, and committees of men from different sections of the county were appointed to carry out the will of the white people. Black residents were given a few days to get out of the county. To enforce this, men from various parts of the county were appointed to ensure compliance. Signs were posted around the town that Black people were not welcome, and if they're caught in the area after dark, it would not end well for them. By 1900, the census showed that of a 23,000 population, every person was white, and apparently, as mentioned in a 1953 book about the Negro exodus from Comanche County, the town took great pride and promoted the fact they had an all-white population. A news clipping from the Courier Journal discusses the exile of Blacks in Comanche from the perspective of a white man. He mentions whether a different town should consider exiling Blacks as well.
Our people, white people, of course, gave Negroes all the morals they have. I lived in a county in Texas, Comanche, where Negroes were not allowed to live except one family. I couldn't ask such folk, brave, white Americans, to do my little bachelor chores. I mean, the running of errands and 100 little things that we don't hesitate to ask a Negro to do. Oh, I missed the Negro and never want to be without them as a servant.
The racist policies had serious, long-lasting implications for daily activities and travel. Black train porters were known to hide in baggage cars while passing through the county to avoid confrontation. The threatening signs were eventually relocated from the train station to the town well after the railroad intervened due to the danger posed to its workers. There's no clear record of when the sign was finally removed, though. Today, Comanche County is a small community of around 13,594 residents, according to the 2020 census, with a demographic of 73% white and 0.2% Black. 6. Cicero, Illinois. Cicero, a suburb of Chicago in Cook County, has a population of 85,268 as of 2020 and is the 11th most populous municipality in the state. The demographic shift in Cicero is now 89% Hispanics or Latinos. It now has only 19% identifying as white and 4% as Black, a very different demo from its past when it was still a sundown town in Illinois. Cicero's tumultuous history includes a race riot on July 11th to 12th, 1951. According to Cicero Independiente, in the summer of 1951, Harvey Clark Jr., a black bus driver from Chicago, rented an apartment in Cicero, Illinois. At the time, Cicero was a predominantly white sundown town where black people were often harassed or attacked after dark. When the Clark family attempted to move in, Cicero police blocked their entry and threatened to arrest them. The Clarks sued the police department, and a court later ruled that they must be allowed to move in and receive protection from anyone trying to force them out. On July 11th, 1951, the Clark family moved in under court order. That same day, a white mob of up to 4,000 people gathered. They threw the Clarks' belongings out of a third-story window, set them on fire, and tried to burn down the building. As recorded in Cicero, revisited from the Images of America series, one woman in the crowd told a reporter, "They're doing exactly right. They're only protecting our homes." The violent incident received global condemnation. In the mid-1960s, Cicero became a focal point in the civil rights movement, although plans for marches were often reconsidered due to fears of violence. However, a significant march did occur, helping to galvanize support for the Civil Rights Act of 1968, which aimed to eliminate discrimination in housing. 7. Deerfield, Illinois. Deerfield, Illinois, a northern suburb of Chicago, located about 28 miles north, is known for its affluent neighborhoods and beautiful setting on the North Shore. It represents one of the wealthiest legacy sundown towns in Illinois. As of the 2020 census, the village's population was 19,196, with 88% identifying as white and only 0.71% as black. The town was even listed third in the top 50 best places to raise children. Despite this, the town has had a history of issues with racial integration. In 1959, Deerfield became a battleground over racial equality. It was triggered when local officials issued a stop work order to halt the construction of a new housing development after learning it would be open to African Americans. The ensuing debate over integration, which touched on property values and the integrity of community leaders and developers, had earned Deerfield the moniker, the Little Rock of the North. Supporters of integration faced severe backlash and were ostracized by many in the community. In a move that quashed the possibility of integration at that time, the village chose to build parks on the contested land, with the properties developed into what are now Mitchell Pool and J.C. Park, effectively ending the housing development. 2 partially completed model homes were sold off to village officials. 8. De Leon, Texas. De Leon, a city within Comanche County, has a population of 2,246. The town has a predominantly white demographic, making up over 62% of residents, with blacks accounting for just 0.62%. They expelled their black population in 1886. The demographic imbalance can be traced back white citizens driving out black residents after a murder and subsequent lynching of a black man. This racial purge was not just an act of social cleansing, but became a perverse point of pride among locals. A sign warning black individuals not to let the sun set on them in De Leon was blatantly displayed at the local railroad station. 9. Elmo, Texas. In 1892, Elmo declared itself a sundown town in Texas. A news article from Weekly Charlotte Observer explains why Elmo, Texas, adopted a sundown town mindset. The article bluntly stated that the presence of African Americans depreciated land values and questioned the effectiveness of freedom and education in improving their role as citizens. Quotes from Weekly Charlotte Observer says this: "Whereas the race problem is of momentous importance to the Southern people, being one that must be solved sometime, and in view of the unprecedented number of recent outrages by black brutes on white children and women, these outrages will be brought every day to our doors. Negro immigrants are pouring in upon us with an increase of ratio, which, if not stopped, will result in ruin to our schools and society. And whereas we have in our midst a class of colored citizens that is a menace to society and that prevent a desirable class of white people locating with us. It is the judgment of this meeting that no Negro immigrant be given any home in our midst, and that the objectionable ones be peaceably, quiet, and lawfully removed from us as soon as the present crop is harvested. The language here is really loaded. It reflects some deep-seated fears and prejudices of the time, pitching a rather drastic us versus them scenario. 10. Terrell, Texas. Named after Robert A. Terrell, an early European-American settler known for his uniquely designed round house that served as a fortification against Native American attacks, the town was officially incorporated in 1874. Terrell was another sundown town in Texas that historically did not allow Black people to live there. According to an article from the Weekly Charlotte Observer, in Terrell, African Americans were barely tolerated, and efforts were made throughout the community to discourage their settlement. As of the 2020 census, it had a population of 17,465, with 38% identifying as white and 26% as Black. According to one resident, things have changed for the better. Before, the town was divided by a railroad track, Blacks on one side and whites on the other. Now, the town is more integrated with diverse communities. Despite this, another resident from Terrell said that the community still remains divided. He says, most Black people live on the south side of the tracks, and you can tell one community from the other. 11. Grand Saline, Texas. Grand Saline, a city in East Texas, Van Zandt County, has a population of 3,107, with over 71% identifying as white and just 0.51% as Black or African American. Historically, Grand Saline was not always predominantly white. In the late 19th century, following the Reconstruction era, the city had a significant Black population. But after a violent outbreak, described by some as pogrom, no idea what this means, resulted in the mass killing of Black residents. Some reports from these interviews also mentioned that the bodies of the victims were mutilated and publicly displayed. By the late 20th century, their sundown town status was a point of pride for some residents. There were accounts, like one from Andrew Puller, a former slave, recalling a sign in Grand Saline that read, "Ner, don't let the sun go down on you here." Similarly, a resident from a nearby Texas town shared childhood memories. Coaches evidently made threats to leave misbehaving Black students in Grand Saline as a form of punishment. As recent as June 2014, a local resident noted that there are 5 Black families living in Grand Saline, so there does appear to be a small number of Black residents, but definitely not a strong Black community. 12. Archer City, Texas. Archer City is a small town with a population of 1,601, including 1,372 white residents and 14 Black. During the 1920s and 1930s, signs explicitly warning Black travelers against staying in the town after dark were reportedly posted around Archer City. Historical accounts from residents, such as the recollections of a family whose grandparents lived there for decades, shed light on the racial atmosphere of the mid-20th century. According to these family stories, there were virtually no Black residents in Archer City during the 1950s and 1960s. An exception was made for Joe Eddy, a Black man who worked for a local rancher named Mr. Young. Unlike other Black individuals, Joe Eddy was allowed in the town at any time due to his employment with a respected local figure. Some towns are considered sundown towns based on the low population of Black residents or persistent rumors, yet concrete written evidence can be scarce. Historical records of explicit racial policies are often not well documented, leaving only anecdotal evidence or oral histories to fill in the gaps. Therefore, even though sundown towns were everywhere, there was almost no information on the topic until sociology professor Jim Lowen researched and wrote about it. Most white Americans have no idea such communities exist, or they think such places exist mainly in the Deep South. Ironically, the Deep South has almost no sundown towns. Mississippi, for instance, has no more than 6, while Illinois has at least 456. Historians in sundown communities do not discuss this because it would reflect badly on their communities. However, as long as racism still exists, as well as gerrymandering and redlining, sundown towns will always have a place in America. In conclusion, the existence of sundown towns in 2025 challenges us to reflect on our own roles in perpetuating or dismantling systemic inequities. It calls for a renewed commitment to justice, empathy, and understanding as we strive to create a society that truly embodies the ideals of equality and belonging for all. This brings us to the end of yet another video segment. Did you happen to learn a thing or two?
All right, all praises to the Most High. So, what can we learn from this video? We find a decent prop here. So, sundown towns. Here in 2025, we're still experiencing sundown towns. Places where so-called black people go and the sun goes down on them, you're pretty well guaranteed the threat of violence. So what does that mean? What that means is that in 2025, present day, here and now, the ideology of equal and integration has failed. It's failed. There is no such thing as equal or integration in this society when you still have multiple sundown towns. There's an entire county in Texas and numerous towns in Illinois and other places. You can Google these things. Sundown towns in the USA. And it'll give you a long list of towns that are considered sundown. So that equates to there is the idea of equality, the idea of integration is a failed thought. So if you live in a place like, I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas, you can operate in Little Rock as you see fit, regardless of your race. But if you try to go to Vida, Texas, or Anna, Illinois, or Benton, Illinois, or Alba, Texas, or the entire Comanche County in Texas. Interesting fact, Cicero was considered a sundown town. May not be currently. However, I've been watching Boardwalk Empire, and it talks about Cicero, Illinois, as a place where Al Capone and his brothers basically got ownership of. They were able to take ownership of the city of Cicero and did it by legal means, by stealing, I think they stole the election or something like that. Nevertheless, that's an interesting fact. Also, Deerfield, Illinois. So there are various places in Illinois, and I can recall Dr. Michael King, saying that Illinois, he said actually in Chicago during his time, he said in Chicago, he had never seen such racism from Montgomery to Mississippi as he had seen in Chicago, Illinois. Chicago had a type of racism that sent shudders through the bones, Dr. Michael King. And obviously it's a big deal because yet in Illinois, it is still sundown town. Sundown towns highly prevalent in that area. So again, no better way to be humble than to understand that there are certain places that you're not allowed. And the idea that some evil person would say that they would ask so-called Negroes to do anything and they wouldn't ask white people to do tells me that you have no business working as a servant to these heathen, to these damn devils, because they think of you as nothing. And I know sometimes you got to do what you got to do, but if you can't give me a job that I can be respected in, you can drop dead, because I'm not interested in it. I'm not serving you. I'm not bringing you your food. You find another heathen to do that mess. I'm not doing that. And here's the irony. I hate going places to eat and don't see no black faces because I don't trust them other people. You go to a place and it's all white, you're like, damn, I can't eat here. These motherfuckers will kill me. What they gonna put in my food? Can I trust these people to give me what's real, what I'm supposed to have? Or they gonna give me some other stuff? It's crazy business. It's a sad reality, but our reality nonetheless. For a time is gonna come where this won't be our reality anymore. Whew, man. All right. All right. Gather myself. Salaki, forgive me. I'm going to go ahead and close this on out. Another one of these difficult videos. And we need these things. We need to know what we're up against. Doesn't do us any good to be up against the hardest circumstances in human history. And we don't know it. We thinking we just walk right in there, no problem, no big deal. You need to know you up against stiff opposition. People who have absolutely no problem with using weapons to torture and destroy and maim you. You have no problem with people who will fight against you like it is wartime. You go in there and think you're going to put your hands in the air and they just going to stop. No. They will fight you as if you have come in there to destroy the entire way. And you think that being nonviolent is going to resolve people with this mindset. It's not going to happen. You can't resolve nonviolence. You can't use nonviolence to resolve people who will react to you with such levels of violence. It doesn't happen. Think about the resolve that has been put in place. Let's bring in the National Guard. The National Guard come in there with their weapons and say, if you move, we move. That's not nonviolent. That is to say, if you cause, then we gonna respond. If you make a move, if you go against whatever it is set up, then that's a response. That's violence. I'm not advocating for violence, but I'm telling you that you cannot have a violent offense and a nonviolent defense. There's no such thing as a violent offense and countering a violent offense with a nonviolent defense. It doesn't happen. And only our people have been tricked and duped into believing that somehow, some way, my not willingness to engage you in combat will cause me to somehow win. That is unreasonably stupid. unreasonable. If you move against me, my hand will move against you. Simple and plain. You move your hand against me, I will move my hand against you with more force than you thought about moving against me. That is the only way to quench violence, with greater, stiffer, and more assertive violence. Not advocating violence, but to resolve violence takes greater violence. Simple and plain. Simple and plain. Now, in this society, in this country, my people don't have the resolve to produce greater violence. We don't have the tools, we don't have the equipment, we don't have the numbers, we don't have anything that we need in order to make that be the reality. However, the Most High Power has it all. And he's going to send the Messiah, Hamashiach. And Hamashiach's going to show up with his army of 144,000 of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. And when that day comes, all of your violence won't mean a thing, because the resolve of Hamashiach and 144,000, the army of Yahweh, you won't be able to stand against it. You won't be able to speak against it. You won't be able to do anything against it, because that army will wipe out any possibility of any turmoil that exists. It will wipe it out with immediate and harsh violence, with great and distinct violence, and blood will be shed. And that's what you got to look forward to, because that is the promise of the Most High, is that he will gather his people and take us back to our land, and also eradicate our enemies. That's what you got to look forward to. So I look at this picture, and you're probably thinking, why is that picture up in the back? Because I want you to understand that when these things come to fruition, it won't come to fruition unearned. It would have been earned exquisitely by the violence that have been perpetrated against my people for centuries. For centuries. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end it here. We do this for a specific purpose. Romans chapter 10 and verse 1. Brethren, my heart's desire and prayer to Ha'abba for Israel is that they might be saved. We want to see our people saved. We want to see our people set free. We want to see our people restored to the prominence that the Most High has promised us. How are we going to do it? First of all, we're going to keep the faith and the belief in Hamashiach, the Messiah, Yahushua by name, in his order from Yahweh to gather the 12 tribes of the children of Israel, bring us back into our own land, and to destroy our enemies. Also, Ecclesiastes chapter number 12 and verse 13, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear the Most High and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Understand that we are to fear the Most High and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. At the end of the day, when it is all said and done, all the dust is settled and all the smoke is cleared, we will be judged on whether we have feared the Most High and kept his commandments, because this is the whole duty of man. I am your Akazaki Yahu, as always, giving all praises, honor, and great esteem unto the Most High Power, Yahweh, Bashem, Hamashiach, Wamalak, Yahweh Shai, and to the 12 tribes of Israel who are scattered to the four quarters of the earth. I say Shalom, Wa, Baruchim, that is peace and blessings. And I cannot wait till the day when the Most High brings us back together and we are once again 12 tribes, one family, one nation, under the Most High Power, under one covenant, back in our own land with a heart of flesh and no more a heart of stone, with our enemies, our adversaries, and all those who hate us under our feet. Until that day come, Shalom, family. All praises to the Most High. Praise you, Abba Yah, Kwam Yasha'Allah, and Barak Hashem Yahweh.